because there's so many experts here, I'm not going to waste a lot of time doing introductions, so I'm going to go straight into it. When you introduce yourself, I also want you to say what you think the biggest challenge with mobility and cities currently is, and what are you doing about it?
Okay, very well. Thank you for intro. I'm Gunita Kuļikovska. I'm actually an architect and urban designer turned into the tech entrepreneur. So I kind of have a glance of both worlds, right? And at the moment in the Vividly, we are building solutions in AR and VR for architects and urban planners. And we're truly standing for not just impressive VR experiences, but for truly engaged communities, engaged citizens, while developing these smart solutions and going under the smart city agenda. And in terms of mobility, I truly believe that how we experience mobility in every city shapes our behaviors, our social relationship, not just the brand of the city. So it's in fact not just how we move from one place to another, from A to B.
Or how things move from one place to another as well.
Or things move, but it's part of, it's embedded. It's almost our DNA of how we behave in the cities. And we see that in traffic jams. We see how it all correlates with our relationship at the work after we have experienced a very bad sort of a trip to the work, and so on and so forth. So I would really stand in this panel, I guess, for those who are vulnerable on the streets, those who are pedestrians, cyclists, bikers, etc., who are at the moment being sort of under the danger of how this all mobility and technology is moving, and we see a lot of like.
So you see a lot of dangers with mobility innovation then, or is it more of like who takes responsibility?
Well, I see the gaps over there, yeah. So the sort of human and tech connection in a way, how smart solutions in fact forget about our sort of daily relationship in the streetscape. You know, those small pedestrian walkways can actually affect a lot more than another app, right?
Andreas, what is the challenge that you are solving with mobility in cities?
Thank you very much. My name is Andreas Blin. I have the pleasure of working for a company called Has to Be, and the name of our company, Has to Be, comes from the sentence, electromobility has to be energized. So we are working on providing services to the charging environment, the charging infrastructure for electric cars. I hate the term chicken and egg problem, because for me, the chicken and egg conundrum has been solved a long time ago. And the same is happening now with electromobility. Everybody's talking about where the car is going to come from, where is the charger, where the charger is going to be, how is charging going to work. Everything of this is solved. And we are working to promote the solutions, to promote the business models. And we see the big challenges with now the acceptance coming in.
By who?
By the consumers and the markets. Up to now, people driving an electric car were mostly the techies. Somebody who would actually have fun to have 17 apps on his phone to maybe compare which app gives me the better range estimation. But now with the cars coming that will be totally affordable to everybody, and also to your grandmother, these people will no longer be techies. They need to be able to move in a way that they're used to. They need to move in a way that it fits their life, and it fits also the infrastructure of the cities. And that's what we do, and that's what we are working for.
Great, thank you. Mārtiņš.
Hi, everybody. There are two angles, you know. One angle is look to the wise mobility from that perspective. How you move, how fast, how safely, and from the environmental point and other points. And there is other angle, create space when you should not move so much, so fast, and you can be in an environment where mobility is already solved when you are there. So this is one of the perspective how state real estate is looking right now to their projects and to the perspective. We are a company, we are responsible for 25% of the state, all the state real estate, and we are responsible for cultural heritage and public office and things like that. And what we are doing, we are investing to create some clusters. This is my understanding about the strategy of the all public wise investment. You should invest to create places where people feel that they are in modern, safe environment, and where they can create those ecosystems and networks. For instance, we have more than 100 million investment in some cultural art objects and buildings. We are creating, we call this makerspace and tab-fab district, where will be Academy of Culture, where will be theaters, where will be new environment for the young people who are working together in one direction. So
not always young.
Not always young, but it's like young energy, you know. And this is way how we understand in the same way with public offices. For instance, if we are looking forward, we see that it's so important to put people together from different areas, from different ministries, from different institutions, to allow them sit together, eat together, drink together, and do
Sing
things.
Karaoke together.
Yes, do things like that. And when you create those clusters, there also you can get couple other benefits for the environment and city. For instance, if there is enough people, you see how services come there around. People can start use less time to get those services. They don't need anymore to rush around the city. You can create much more better infrastructure which is supporting infrastructure, whatever, to keep cars, to keep your bikes or things like that. You can agree with city that you can move their very clear transport hub and link this with public transportation system. So there are many benefits when you create such kind of clusters. So this is one angle.
Excellent. Now, Kayvan, you already introduced yourself, so you don't need to do it again. But Mobility City Campus, so it's going to create innovations. You spend a lot of time in cities. What are some of the things that frustrate you, and what are some of the things that you would like to see get innovated from the Mobility City Campus and actually make cities better places to live?
One thing is, I get really frustrated and annoyed when I travel to a city so advanced, like, for example, Madrid is a good example, right? It's a really large city, quite compact, and there are trash cars, like trash trucks, picking up the trash around the city. And they notice that these trucks, when they pick up this trash at night, they wake up a lot of people. What's the obvious solution? Convert them to electric trucks. And what really frustrates me is when you go to Madrid or any other city that does that, the other cities don't copy the innovation that happens there. Why the hell not? How are we so stubborn? Why don't we go, when we go to Malta or when we go to Amsterdam, we see, oh, this works really well. And then we go to our own city and we just sit down and drink and we don't want to copy. I mean, how are we so stubborn? How is innovation not just copy and pasted? I mean, how are we able to create so many amazing things in cities but not actually improve people's lives? It frustrates the S out of me, really.
Yeah. Gunita, I mean, how much do you guys copy? Or look for good benchmarks
how
around
much
the world?
we're copying from others. We're not really good at the mobility question, I'd say, and solving it in Riga. But I would address again the political issue and like having different political opinions and powers fighting for different topics, and that is putting.
Give some examples. What topics do you think are slowing down innovation in mobility in terms of public policy?
In terms of what mobility are we speaking? Are we just trying to, decrease the commute time, or we are actually thinking about mobility as a movement in the city, dynamic, vibrant infrastructure that allows, for example, the cyclists easily to move and feed the economic sort of relationship in the city? So we have been, I think, fighting for the, a decent cycle lines and sort of a bicycle infrastructure for years already. There's been a loads of guerrilla tries, to build those lines, but still the governance of the city is not really, going for that, not investing, even though it's not really a much of investment then.
Mārtiņš, do you want to answer that? I mean, I think that you've had a little bit to do with these kind of conversations in your past.
It could become really political. I'm not sure that this is right place and right time.
It is the right place because we have people living here. I think, politics is really important, so let's go into it.
But this is a right point that the thing is whether you show the showcases, how it works. And I think public infrastructure should be like anchor places where it could be shown. For instance, places where to put your bikes or electrical charging should be like already mantra, which should be introduced in each public infrastructure. And there is also another thing where can I agree about this political will. For instance, it took just 6 or 12 months when all the city was full with electric scooters, you know. And in the same time, we support such kind of movement. We see how people can fast move and cheaply, etc. On the other hand, we are not ready to think about a bit some rules. Actually, it's interesting. I came from China yesterday, and I was there for 3 weeks, and I saw how fast those big cities changed their understanding about this electric movement, electric bikes. They understood that on the one hand, it's good for environment, but on the other hand, it's not so safe. You don't hear them, the speed is fast, etc. And so introduced immediately regulation that the bikes should not be too powerful, and there are precise speed limit how they can move, how fast. So in that way, you should do those things both together.
Yeah. Andreas, how much do you guys deal with public policy and city officials? And
yeah, what I really can think is very right is why are we not copying these things? And I think in many instances, they want to make too many steps at once. Okay. Yeah? So I can really imagine that in Madrid they introduced these electric trash cars, and probably in Munich and Berlin, and German engineers will say, if they are electric, we want them to be autonomous, so we don't need a driver in the front. And that's something that really frustrates me, because I work for electrical cars. I learn a lot and I talk a lot about autonomous cars, but that is the future.
It's not a solution to anything. It's
not a solution to anything, and it's extremely complicated. There's many questions open. So the cars are there, the technology is there. We can drive electric tomorrow. Yeah. As soon as everybody can have an electric car, the solutions are there. Autonomous driving is way ahead. I was in a presentation the other day, really interesting, and the guy said he wants to introduce a new scientific constant. He calls this the autonomous driving constant. It's always this year plus 10 years. Because if you remember back in 2010, everybody's saying in 2020, we're going to have autonomous cars. And now you're reading about 2030, and I bet you in 2030 they're going to say it's 2040. Because it's a huge issue, and it's not necessary. Electric cars are extremely efficient, they're extremely good, they're available, they solve a lot of problems.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
And
they don't solve almost anything, just solve less noise in the cities. What else do they solve?
Yeah, electric cars still like your silo, kind of effect. So still the street is in silos, pedestrians, sidewalk, electric cars on the road. That doesn't really solve the issue of owning that car or having one car per user. It doesn't solve the mobility, it doesn't solve the issues in the street space, right?
And you still sit in traffic, you still sit like,
if I may say so, you two are doing precisely what I was saying. electric cars don't solve everything, but electric cars solve the fact that we now have local combustion of fossil fuels to create kinetical energy, which is total nuts. So they don't solve the problem of personal ownership of the cars. No, they don't. They don't solve the problem of this and that, the other thing, but they solve the problem of having diesel burned at small quantities everywhere around the city.
So it's a step forward.
Yes, it is a step forward. No, they don't solve all the problems in mobility.
Yeah, but it's not a solution to almost, I disagree with you because we have hydrogen power, we have amazing, Hyundai's created amazing hydrogen cars that actually suck in CO2 while they drive and spew out clean air. We don't have many hydrogen fueling stations around cities.
Yes, and that's the problem.
This is a huge thing.
I see that purely from the problem with physics is physics doesn't solve anything, it only describes problems. And hydrogen is, you can discuss months about this. Hydrogen is extremely complicated. And in the end, what does hydrogen do? Hydrogen powers an electric motor. Yes, hydrogen will be part of the mobility of the future. But now we have electric cars, battery-operated cars, and we can release them and solve a lot of problems, not all of them. And hydrogen will be the solution for many other problems. But from a physical standpoint, from an energy standpoint, from a purely business standpoint, hydrogen is not viable today. It's 3 times the amount of electricity to produce the same kinetic energy in a car if it brought hydrogen, and that's purely
now
physics.
We're leading into energy transformation discussion, which was not the topic for today, as interesting as it is. But Gunita, I mean, you're saying that so some of these things don't solve the real issues. I mean, what kind of innovations do you take into account when you help, for example, with the people flow of cities that would actually solve issues?
Where I would kind of sort of hint or pug is really into how we finance the mobility and what are the relationship between sort of public and private and individual responsibility towards mobility, in fact, and towards being able to move and move across the city or closer to the city.
Does the citizen care about financing or what the structure is?
Well,
I mean,
it affects in many levels, right? And with the finance, I would also address segregation, especially in the metropolitan areas, and growing cities, which is not the Riga case, unfortunately, but where you've been pushed, outside of cities. So basically, as more you commute, as for from a poorer community or neighborhood you are. So
you need a car.
Yeah, then you need a car, and then most probably you're rather kind of located in the area, and your abilities, access to services, well-being, health, and so on and so forth gets too expensive for you and also for the government. So all these questions are quite related. And I'd say
do you have answers to any of those questions?
No, I have just questions. In fact,
you just have questions.
But I've heard people discussing about it. The last one was Mexico City, the Melbourne. So how they are trying to solve that in collective way. Connectivity as such, together with the planning, sort of empowering neighborhoods, empowering labor market. Trying to help with the data-driven decision making. And optimized mobility systems to be sort of adjusted to the human behaviors rather than being opposite. And then the financial model is somewhere in between that, where.
When you were in China, I mean, did you see any kind of dynamic financing models that maybe we should copy here in Europe? Government-owned everything?
In China, it is a bit different. You can introduce some rules from the next months immediately, and people will move in that.
So dictatorship supports innovation.
Will not ask anything about this. So actually, I think what I see as examples which works and where you can add some public policy very easy is, for instance, sharing cars. This solve mobility much more than any electric engine in the city. And if you as a public policymaker provide for them less price for parking, and even more, you can give them a public bus line instead of taxi drivers, for instance. So it's like examples like that. You can match those private, very clear companies
support them with policy.
which introduce solutions which are definitely supported by the society and which really give benefit to the mobility purpose. So, I mean, less driving, less time in car, etc., etc.
Kayvan, what's your take on this?
I just think democracy is useless.
It is.
Yeah, I think it's useless because look at Europe. I mean, we are obsessed with this ancient Greek ideology that doesn't impact any of us anymore. And we're not even involved. It's just for the elite, and it just creates problems. More democracy there is, I think, in less solutions you hit the streets. Look at Finland. It's a great example, perhaps the most democratic country in the world, right? You're from Finland, and there's like a bunch of master debaters there who sit around for hours and hours and days, and they debate and debate what should be done. And meanwhile, decades go by. How many, I asked you this before, like, how long did it take to create 4 or 5 metro stops in Finland?
10 years.
10 years. Yep. You know how long it took that? It's same thing in
India.
Dubai or China or something, like months. Yeah. I know dictatorship is not the solution, like look at Russia, but for example, there are other solutions. Democracy is definitely not the solution. We have endless amount of elections right now in Europe. United Kingdom is a great example, Spain and other nations. Elections after elections after elections, and then every time there's an election, new government comes in place, policy goes out, budgets crumble, more corrupt people come in power, and then we lose.
That's why I think that cities are actually becoming the hubs of power instead of nations, because cities can actually be run more as dictatorship than having to kind of worry about the next elections.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I live in Netherlands. We have amazing bike lanes, and then you go to Belgium, no bike lanes.
Nothing. Yeah.
What the? Why? How are you not? I mean, are you not seeing Netherlands? Are you not coming to Netherlands? Are you not biking? I mean, how are you not able to, in your entire history, create more than 5 kilometers of bike lanes?
But it took them 6 years to form a government with the last government, so it's Belgians.
But now we start to talk about future next 10 years about change of world policy making.
Sorry, what was that?
Change of world policy
World
making.
policy making, yeah.
And perhaps we again get to the question of that technology innovation technology is moving faster than the social innovation, political innovation. We still stand for the same political groups and values as we did decades ago, right? It haven't been adjusted to the modern way of using the city and governing your areas, how communities work and so on. But innovation, political innovation, is something that we it's already something that as a Bible. So this is how we work: the centric, the right, the left, the liberals. I'm kind of asking, how do we actually, kind of be proactive, participative in this created political systems or stances or regulations or whatever? How do we actually move forward with that innovation so that we can join those both?
You have some of the best questions I've ever heard. You have loads of them.
I think the one approach, I understand about the scale of innovation that you can achieve with some non-democratic approach. But in the same time, because of speed of technology, right now I don't think that this very clear 5-year planning is the best way for next 10 years. My feeling is that the step-by-step and so-called testing environment and going forward with some experimental approach is what next 10 years will be the appropriate for our democratic European society.
Yeah, but governments are not very good at that because governments don't like to fail.
That's why government need to cooperate with private and education.
Well, look at European Union; it's a mess. It's a mess. We have 27 countries. One is leaving, and it's cooperation. And if anyone wants to apply for innovation fund or money to actually do innovation, it takes so long that the person already innovated has gone to China or United States. It's a mess. I mean, all the policy stuff that we're talking about, we have 10 years, guys. We have 10 years to turn the ship around. And we're talking about policy.
Yeah.
We should be doing whatever China is doing, just implement a lot of innovation now or die. That's like really go forward. Like really.
So we've hit energy transformation, European politics. I love this panel. Does actually anybody from the audience have any questions to the panelists or a statement that you would like us to discuss?
Is the president of Latvia here? Why is he not here?
He will be in afternoon.
Why is he not here now? He should be here now. This is the most important
Go
thing.
get him.
Mayor is, where is he? Is she or he?
Good. So now, what country is doing it well? I mean, is Latvia doing really well in terms of mobility innovation? And this is the kind of the last statement that we have time for. And no more questions. I want an answer this time.
If you ask, like, is it? The answer should be yes or no, right? Well, we have, I think, potential due to the fact that we're having this Rail Baltica line built up. This is gonna like create or shape us, not just the city, not just the state, but the region, as Europe and the world has seen us already. So mobility across the region, the Baltics, the three small, very tiny but strong and independent countries, that will allow the labor force to move, the innovation to move, to work together better, and so on. Because this hour, basically from 30 minutes to 1 hour and a half, is that a daily commute time that you're ready to take without much of a planning. But then 3 to 4 hours, it's already something that's a business trip, the meeting is something, so on. From Riga to Tallinn, there's going to be approximately 2 hours, and from Riga to Vilnius as well, 2 hours. So you can say that that's sort of a daily commute that you can take. So I can easily go in one day to see the colleagues or to meet the partners, to see how they are doing what they are doing, and bring that knowledge back in the same day. So in terms of mobility and in the context of a social and economic sort of strength, I think we are on a good path.
Andreas, as the head of sales, you must travel around Europe a lot. What country or cities do you think is doing really well in terms of supporting innovation and mobility?
Several. One country that's doing a lot of innovation is Dubai, of course. But of course, there only a small part of the people living there get to get to profit from what they're doing. I don't think that any Pakistani worker who's building the buildings there is ever going to fly in one of those volocopters. But that's a different story. I see a lot of projects going on all around the globe, actually. If you look at India and the transformation of combustion engines, so for the rickshaws to electric, they are looking at this very closely, and the first things are going to be done. If you look at an island in the Azores, which is balancing all of the renewable energy that they produce through the battery of 1,000 French cars, quite a fascinating project. If you look at Europe, who is building up a fast charger network along all the large lines, large traffic motorways all over Europe. If you look at Latvia, who has a lot of fast chargers already, and I think 698 electric cars. So there's way to go, but I'm very optimistic.
You were weirdly specific there.
Sorry?
You were weirdly specific there with
Yeah,
690
probably.
cars.
I probably have heard the number yesterday, but probably tomorrow is going to be 702. So anyway, I think that a lot is going on, and I'm quite optimistic that things are going to happen as long as you focus on one problem at a time and don't try to solve everything at once.
Great. So I want to ask you, actually, what can we learn from China in terms of supporting innovation and mobility?
Get rid of democracy.
That's tough.
I
Like a
think,
revolution.
I think we should learn that this speed train is crucial for Baltic region. I would
Why
say
not just jump straight into Hyperloop?
That's great proposal. We will go there in 25 years. I
We don't have
prefer.
time.
I prefer this idea that we need it in 5 years, and it will create totally different environment for this region.
So you don't think if Europe worked together, like really worked together, we could make the Hyperloop network a reality in 10 years?
Not yet. I don't believe in that yet. But the other thing is, I think we should really focus on this other speed of moving within the city. So to give very clear message that there is no need to run from one spot to the another within the city in 5 or 7 minutes, you know. Yeah. It's better in 10, but much more safer.
Kayvan,
What's up?
why can't Hyperloop be there in 10 years?
Why cannot?
I mean, we know the guys.
We do know the guys.
They're building a 3-kilometer full-speed track.
Yeah, there's not enough corruption.
I don't think there is either.
We need more corruption. We need, yeah, we do need. I know it's an unpopular opinion, and I want to shout it again. I mean, the technology is there. We have all the brains. They're going begging for cities and countries to let them build like 4 kilometers?
Yeah, 4 kilometers.
I mean, they're from the most advanced nation on earth in terms of construction, Netherlands, and they can't get even in Rotterdam or Amsterdam.
It's taken them a year and a half to find a place to build this.
Yeah, and like everyone is like thumbs in there. They're like, hey, I don't know, what should we do? Should we have more meetings and then talk about this? Like, no. If there was more corruption, it was just someone on top saying, do this or else. Like, do it now, I'll get someone else to do it. I think things will go much more faster. I mean, we are losing here. We're losing to China, guys. We're losing to the United States. We are losing. Even the orange man in the United States is beating us. I mean, we need to go faster, and then we can't just have them by elections and other governments and waiting 3 years and 4 years. Hyperloop guys are desperate. They have clients in China,
and they're
right?
passionate.
And they want a European first solution. I know we're talking about Hyperloop, but it's going to change our lives. It's going to bring innovation closer. So that's really important. And I think ultimately we're failing ourselves by asking too many opinions and too many people involved in making the soup, you know? Yeah.
And I think that's a great point to end this panel on. Let's give him a really warm round of applause. Thank you so much.